I wish you'd listen. Walk, walk, ooh, walk. Till you what things y'all say. Walk, walk, ooh, walk.
It's that folk back then would travel great distances to secure a future of positive instances. And though the journey was filled with danger, keeping faith in what's unseen to my people is no stranger. Did I mention all the miles that they covered in search of their hopes and dreams to discover? Seeking a life free of grueling labor and an opportunity to taste the city flavor. The way that it moved people out from the shared proper life of the South.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are so excited that you decided to tune in for the second episode of the Bronzeville Trail Show, Recapturing and Making History. This is a show in which we highlight one of the most amazing and historic communities, not only in the city of Chicago, indeed in the United States and in the world, but particularly for Black people, Bronzeville is so important. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria McDaniel, and I'm blessed to be on the board of the Bronzeville Trail Task Force. And during our shows, what we're going to do is we're going to provide information on what's going on with the Bronzeville Trail Project. But in addition, we're going to feature people from the community, like my special guest that we have today, who are engaged in outstanding work and bringing people together. We're going to also highlight historic events and share historic information. And we're honored today because we have Mr. Bill Gaston. He is president of the Major Taylor Cycling Alliance. You can see his cool gear that he has on. And if you're like me or like I was about a year ago, you might be asking yourself, who is Major Taylor and why is he so important that we have to have a whole guest devoted to talking about the work that he did. But we're in luck because today our guest is going to fill us in. He's going to share his own history with us. He's going to tell us a little bit about the history of Major Taylor. And then we're going to discuss a really cool event that's coming up in June. An actual convention that's going to be held in Chicago. So let's dig in. So, Mr. Gaston, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Gloria. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and also about how you became involved with cycling. We were just talking about it's not a thing that typically I thought Black people did, but I'm starting to learn that that's a little different. And why cycling is so important for our community also.
Cycling is important for the communities of color because it can change your life. It is a mode of transportation. It is a mode of exercise. A lot of people that I ride with are former athletes, runners, joggers, triathletes, and cycling is the most hard conditioning exercise without impact to the body, so makes it really easy to do. Cycling is something that all of us in this age dynamic, we probably did as a kid. We got on our bikes, on our scooters and stuff like that. And again, I was just riding for exercise, and one day somebody said, Brother Bill, looks like you're losing weight. And I sucked my gut in. I said, I am losing weight. So I started to see the benefits of cycling.
And how long have you been cycling? And why do you think it's something that is so, not popular is not the right word, but we don't know a lot about it as a sport in our community?
So if you're like me, you turn on the TV and you see the Tour de France, you don't see anybody that looks like us. And so I just went and got a regular mountain bike and I was out riding. And one day I was on the lakefront and I ran into a gentleman who was one of the founders of the Major Taylor Cycling Club of Chicago. And he began to tell me about Major Taylor. And as we were riding south, my mouth just dropped in awe of who this brother was. And when I Googled him, I was just blown away that here's a brother in history that I never, ever heard of. And this was 2017, and it changed the way I looked at cycling completely. And then to find out that there are over 90 Major Taylor clubs around the country, 10,000 members of us, the people that support us that are out here riding. It is one of the best sports you can ever get into, and it will save and change your life.
Maybe, Imani, if you could show a picture of Major Taylor while Bill is talking. So this is a picture, this is a picture of Major Taylor. And so when I was learning about his life, the thing that struck me the most was the fact that it was illegal for us to have bicycles as a mode of transportation because, like everything else about our bodies, they wanted to control our ability to move. And so the fact that he was not only able to do it, but to become the most renowned bicyclist of the United States history, that still to this day, I don't think anybody has done and overcome what he did. Tell us a little bit about his life that you learned.
Wow. So the Major was born in Indianapolis. Basically, he got the name Major. He used to do tricks in front of a bike shop, and he had this real colorful jacket. But the family that his father worked for had a young son. And so they treated the Major like he was a part of their family. So when they bought their son a bike, they bought the Major a bike. And that's kind of how the Major got into cycling. And then they found out that the Major was really good at it. Cycling at that time, we're talking late 1800s, was like the main mode of transportation. And so they tried to get the Major into racing here. A lot of the clubs changed their rules to prevent him from racing. The Major was a religious man, so he didn't race on Sundays. And people that didn't look like us basically embraced the Major, took him to Worcester, Massachusetts, where he did a lot of training. There's a hill there, and that's where the first Major Taylor statue is. Then the Major went overseas, raced all overseas, set all kind of records. In 1899, he became the first world champion, first African-American world champion cyclist. So before Jesse Owens, Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, it was Marshall Major Taylor. And this man, he's one of the few people in history that history has kept quiet. And now...
I had never, like... It's not like I was drawn to history anyway, because it always felt like we were left out. But think about how much more exciting it would have been to learn about someone like him during my time in school. It would have changed the way I viewed history.
It changed the way I looked at history. Matter of fact, the Major created a component where you could slide your handlebars in and out. I mean, he just did things that were unheard of. And so... if you leave this country, other people know who he is. But if you will go down 79th Street and say, do you know who Major Taylor is? They'll be surprised, like, never heard of him. And he's buried here in Illinois. His last known residence was the Wabash Y. He's buried, I believe it's in Mountain Greenwood. If you ride the Major Taylor Trail, which runs, it's the first trail named after Major Taylor. It runs through the Dan Ryan Woods all the way out to Whistler Woods, which is, 130th around Halsted Street.
Okay.
It has the largest Major Taylor mural of any mural in the world. It's a 400-foot bridge span across the Cowsack River. So
I've seen that thing is impressive.
It's impressive.
That thing is impressive. So tell us about your group. We got some photos of the Alliance, and there's groups all over the place. Look at those photos.
That was our first event in Indianapolis a couple years ago, celebrating the Major. We had people come to Chicago to go to his gravesite. So, if you come to Chicago, this is where you come to pay your respects.
That's amazing. So how does the Alliance work? Can people still get involved? Can they join? Like, what is that process like?
So the history goes like this. There is the Major Taylor Association out of Worcester, Massachusetts. That was created to basically be the educational branch about Major Taylor and to build a statue for the Major in Worcester. Then there is the Alliance. The Alliance was basically created to be the overarching governance body. We help clubs get started. We come up with operating procedures, bylaws. We do the huge International Cycling Challenge and things of that to bring the clubs together. And then Columbus, Ohio was the first Major Taylor Club, created in 1979. So in the beginning, you would have to go to Columbus, kiss the rings of the founders in order to be blessed with a club. And now we have one other organization called Major Taylor Kids out of Middle Georgia. It is the only Major Taylor club that is 100% youth-based. So we're teaching people how to get young people on bikes to make the community safer and help young people.
It seems like it's also something that would really help the environment if we're doing less driving and more bicycling. How much of a time commitment is it to be a part of the group? Like, say there's a person out here who's watching who wants to join the club or a club near us. Is it that you ride every weekend? Is it that certain events happen during the year? Or
it varies. So we have, like I said, 90 clubs. There's Major Taylor Nairobi, Major Taylor Taiwan. There are
Nairobi.
Yes. There are 4 clubs in LA. There's 3 in Florida. There's 3 here in Chicago. So basically, you can go to the association site, or soon you'll be able to go to the Alliance site, see the local states, and then find a club near you. Basically, you would just approach the clubs and say you want to join. They have a process to become a cyclist. Most clubs have a training program to help you get up to speed.
Yes.
Riding in a pace line, you're riding just a few inches off of the bike in front of you. So you need to know how to follow bike rules, basically call out things. So if you're on a bike trail and there's someone coming to you, you might say runner up or runner right, runner left. That's telling the cyclist behind you there's someone running, walking to your left, to your right. If there's a bike coming from behind you, you'll say bike back, so you know, or car up. And so you just kind of know what things are out
so
around
there
you.
is training.
There is training.
Okay.
And
Okay.
again, because you're riding so close to the people in front of you, you want to make sure you feel comfortable to do that.
Cool. I know I'll have to be in the back when
And that's okay. That's okay.
So tell us about 2 things. One, your experience that you told me about as you rode through Inglewood with the club. And secondly, tell us about that amazing work you just came back from Washington doing.
Oh, wow. So when I used to be vice president of, I was basically the cycling captain of Major Taylor Chicago. We would do a ride once every Saturday called the Kit Only Ride. We wear the same kit. We go out and ride. This one particular Saturday, we went through Inglewood. And there was about 80 of us. And people were coming out on their porch, and they were clapping, and, they were applauding. And so when we got to the stoplight, a kid came up to us and said, "What's a Major Taylor?" So the first thing was, let's educate you on, it's not a what, it's a who. The second thing another kid said is, we didn't know that black folks ride bikes like that. And that really hurt me. But I understand the average cyclist will spend about $5,000 to get into the sport. You're talking bike, computers, helmet, and everything else. And you don't have to pay all that at once, but that's roughly what it costs. So that just kind of dovetails into last week. We were at the National Bike Summit in Washington, D.C., and we went and we were a part of the Illinois delegation with the Bike League of America that went to petition Congress for 3 bills. One was the bike education bill to get cycling programs back in schools for grammar school and middle schools. The second bill was the Complete Street bill. That would help build new infrastructure, trails for walking, cycling, and just moving around. The reason being is that if you make it where people can move from point A to point B, you can bring jobs to the communities. We don't have to drive. We can lower emissions and things of that nature. The last bill was the Sarah Dublin bill. Sarah Dublin was connected to the government. She was an attaché in Ukraine. She was rescued from there, came back to D.C., went on a bike ride with her 2 small boys, was hit and killed. So again, safe cycling. Even in Major Taylor, we've had cyclists killed. James Davis, one of the pictures that we showed, was a brother on a ride down in South Carolina. We had the coach on the Amish cycling ride. So even here in the city, we were riding down, I think, 79th Street one day, and someone rode by and said, "We gave up a lane of traffic for this." And that just showed me that education is what's missing. If you educate a person on cycling and how to be an effective driver, it changes the way the whole community embraces cycling.
That's not one of the questions that I prepared for us, but this idea of us learning about the importance of cycling as a thing, I just, until I started doing the work with you all and doing the work with the trail, I didn't understand how important that is. And I'm right by Lakeshore Drive. We're all by some place, but where do we start? Like, where is a normal person? Like, you're just somebody watching this show. How do you get up and, number one, are there places where you can find bikes that aren't as expensive? Or are there places where you might be able to, like, attach yourself to a group where they might give away? Like, what can the average person do?
The easiest thing, during COVID, cycling really blossomed. That's how we picked up a lot of members. You don't have to buy an expensive road bike. You could buy a used road bike. My first bike was used, paid $300 for it. You can go to your local bike shop if you can find one in certain communities, get the bike tuned up. Definitely make sure you ride with a helmet on. Things happen, you fall, you go to brace yourself, you ride with a pair of gloves, make sure you don't hurt yourself, make sure you don't hit your heads, things like that. And what you'll find out is over time, you breathe better. Your blood pressure, I have high blood pressure, the numbers come down, just all of the different factors, and then you're out in the world and not just driving through it. So, and then again, Major Tailor clubs, they are all over the country. If you don't want to join the Major Tailor club, there's Black Girls Do Bike, they're everywhere. There are other cycling groups that you can join. There's a club on the south side of Chicago, Slow Roll. They don't go fast.
I love that. That's the group I'm
Yeah, they don't go fast. They just go out for simple rides. There's just a lot of ways to get out here and get into cycling, but to actually put it all in a package. In Chicago, we talk about the Tale of Two Cities.
Yes.
If you go on Milwaukee Avenue, it's the most traveled bike lane in the city. It has concrete barriers to keep the cars from coming over to the lanes and things of that nature. There are places where the trail is marked with lights so you know how to turn. But if you come south, you don't see the same thing. You don't see the same infrastructure. As I was sharing with you early on, Divvy bikes, when they came to Chicago, the last area of Chicago to receive Divvy bikes was Argyle Gardens. So now we're building the extension to the 95th Street station to go south. But you had an opportunity to put Divvy bikes in earlier where people could, ride to work or ride to the train and save a little money. We have to invest more in our community and show why it's important.
So the whole focus on Major Tailor and the focus on cycling and how to make it equitable seems like a social justice initiative that is going to be really important for us going forward. Like, we're going to have a Bronzeville trail. We're going to have a trail where people can bike, ride, and walk. It's going to be handicap accessible. It's going to have the history of Bronzeville built into it. It's going to be an amazing structure. But the bigger thing or the bigger issue around that is the fact that we're celebrating the history of that community in a way that is outstanding. And the fact that Major Taylor's life ended in Chicago makes me feel like he's really connected to us. Tell us about the Congressional medal.
So one thing about cycling, if you really get into the sport, you'll pull up to a ride with your bike on and your kit. And the thing is, you don't know who you're riding with. We have been blessed to have, as one of our members in Major Taylor Chicago, representative of the 1st Congressional District, Jonathan Jackson, who was a Major Taylor cyclist. And so as Jonathan got to know more about Major Taylor, he noticed that the Major was absent in history. And so Jonathan Jackson has authored a bill to get Major Taylor awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. So when we were in D.C., I was able to talk to our Senator Tammy Duckworth. I live out in the western suburbs. I talked to Sean Caston about this bill, and they were all like, we need to sign on to the bill. And what'll make you laugh is Marjorie Taylor Greene has already signed on to the bill.
That Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Marjorie Taylor Greene. We were all kind of like, what?
What?
Are you kidding me? So, but yeah, for the Major is one of those icons in history that history is held tight. And now he's starting to get his just due. So this year, June 21st to the 23rd.
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk to you about, the convention.
The convention.
What's going to happen? Who's going to be there? How do people sign up?
It's the convention, the Major Taylor Convention will be a 3-day convention, and it'll start in Bronzeville at 38th and King Drive.
Okay.
There'll be Major Taylor clubs from around the country, and the biggest push is to get Chicago cyclists to come out. A lot of the youth cyclists. We would love to have more young people come out and be a part just to see this event. There's 3 days of riding. The first day basically is riding the history of Major Taylor going past the Wabash Y, the Major Taylor Trail.
Oh, some actual riding
Oh,
for the
there's going to be some
convention.
riding. There's going to be some riding.
Oh.
And then on Saturday, there'll be 3 routes, 30, 60, and 100. The 60 and 100-mile routes will allow you to go to the cemetery, pay your respects. Sunday, for everybody that's visiting, they'll get a chance to go up the lakefront and see some of the iconic views that you see on TV and take pictures. And then Sunday evening, we'll be heading out to Big Marsh off of 115th and Stony Island, which is a off-course bike track. So if you're into cyclocross, mountain biking, and stuff like that, you can do that. There'll be seminars on Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, my goodness.
One seminar will be totally about young people, led by them. There's one on Cycling 101, how to become an effective ride leader, health and nutrition. There's a brother out of Oklahoma, Osborne. He talked about how he had contracted cancer. And cycling changed his life, and basically he was cancer-free.
Wow. Okay, so how do people find out about it? How do they register? What's your website? Like, we
There's
got
so
a
many
couple more
things.
minutes for you to sum it up for us.
So go to MajorTaylorInternational.com. When you get to the website, you'll see pictures from this year, last year. You'll find out about the group. On the first page, you'll see a button that says register. Click on the button. It'll give you an itinerary of everything that's going to happen. We're going to display the route so people can have the routes on their computers, and there'll be cue sheets. You'll get a wonderful Major Taylor medal, shirt, and everything else. And you'll get a chance just to be surrounded by some of Chicago cyclists of color. The big ride that goes on in the city is Bike to Drive, but what we notice is there are a lot of the other rides aren't happening. So we're expecting to have a huge turnout for this event and to celebrate the major.
Is this your first convention?
This is our third. It'll be the first one in Chicago. So if you missed this year, you shouldn't.
Don't miss this year.
We'll be back in a couple of years later because we'll
Okay.
cycle through Chicago and Indy because he was born and buried here. Next year, we're going to LA, and then 2029, we're going to Columbus, Ohio, which will be the 50th anniversary of Major Taylor Columbus, the very first Major Taylor Club. Had it not been for George Harper reading a book about Major Taylor, there would have never been a cycling club.
That is amazing.
And we're the only club named after an individual. So there is Black Cyclists, Urban Cyclists, 312, Evanston, whatever. But we are the only club named after a cyclist. So if you see Major Taylor, it is one of our clubs.
That is outstanding. So if you were to, like, sum up, or I don't know if you've talked about it in the Alliance, what are your, like, goals for, like, what's coming up for the Alliance?
Us going to Congress really opened my eyes to how that works. You can Google and find about small dollars, but in order to get large appropriations for bills and things to be done, you need to go and talk to someone in Congress. Our Major Taylor Kids Club started with a room in a building to where they were donated a school in Macon, Georgia.
Wow.
So, and she's taking kids off the street. It's an impoverished area. Her kids they pay nothing to cycle. They have bikes, kits, everything. So those are some of the things that we would really like to work on. That, and I would love to see legislation passed for cycling safety in the name of Major Taylor. It makes no sense. If you Google the Major, you'll see pictures of people hanging off his neck trying to choke him as he was riding. There were clubs that changed the rules to prevent him from riding. So anything we can do to help advance the history, the legacy, and the purpose of Major Taylor, that's my goal.
Sometimes the things that we see when I've looked, because, I'm supposed to be working on a children's book about his lifetime in Chicago, but the things that I've seen when I Google him, I can't, I guess I can believe, because we're in the United States, but I can't believe, number one, we never knew about him, and I also can't believe, like, that he endured all that he did in order to, and it was because he loved the sport. Like, I don't know if he knew he was changing the sport for all black people. I don't know if that was his goal, but he certainly did leave an amazing legacy.
I often say there's no way he could have ever imagined that one day someone in Nairobi would be saying Major Taylor. We just finished in February our International Cycling Challenge. The challenge is where we ask all the Major Taylor clubs to come together, and the club with the most miles, the club with the most elevation or longest rides, you win. So we have a Major Taylor club in Taiwan. Day one, they came out the gate with 150,000 feet of elevation climb. It's insane. The total miles I think they did for the month of February for 28 days was, I think it was 600 and some odd miles of cycling across 800 cyclists. It's insane.
It's insane. John and I got reached out to by a professor who's at the University, I think, of Birmingham in England, who wrote chapters about black people and their transportation history and focused on Major Taylor. Everybody knew about him but us in the United States, which is scary.
And you know what, again, the thing is if you don't see it, you can't imagine it. And so right now,
say that one more time.
If you don't see it, you can't imagine it. So the kids, when they come up and ride with us from Middle Georgia, you know, they're riding with a lot of the OGs. I mean, we've got people that are in their 70s and 80s still riding strong. And these kids will jump on their wheel. And we were in Indy, and one of the older members was like, you can ride my wheel any day. And these kids are going back home with the pride and joy that they rode with some of the founding members of Major Taylor. Is absolutely mind-blowing. I got to tell you this one story before we go.
Okay.
So in Middle Georgia, there was a young kid that wanted to start cycling. The local gang was desperately after this kid. Because he got into cycling, they left him alone because he was never around. So in Middle Georgia, they have a room where the kids can come in and get shoes. They can get clothes. They feed them. They help them with their homework and everything else. And they help them cycle. And they travel around the country to different events. So cycling basically has changed some lives.
I love it. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts? I think we got about 1 minute left. Any final thoughts?
Go to our website, MajorTaylorInternational.com. Come out to the convention. Do some research on Major Taylor and find out who he is. And you'll be surprised. The next time you throw your leg over a bike, you won't think of it the same way.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Bill.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.